If you spent any amount of time around anime, you've probably heard of a power system. Maybe you call it a magic system, but it's mostly the same thing. That's just a term that they use in other genres. Either way, it's just a term for the internal rules and logic for any sort of supernatural, magical, futuristic, superhuman, etc. abilities. You know how Superman can absorb power from the yellow sun, so now he can fly and shoot lasers? That's his power system. Superhero comics tend to have different systems for each mythos, but most media, everyone with abilities gets them from the same general source. That just makes world building a lot easier, lore less confusing, villains more beatable. Think of Naruto's chakra, Bleach's spiritual energy, Jujutsu Kaisen's cursed energy, My Hero Academia's quirks, that sort of thing. When it comes to battle manga, because fight scenes are so integral to the genre, a good power system is really important. This is one of the things that will make or break a manga. If you're looking for a guideline, power systems can work however the hell they need to for a given story, but because of the constraints of this genre, systems of battle anime generally need to hit 3 criteria: originality, readability, and most importantly, the balance between freedom and limitations. Now that we're all on the same page in terms of power systems, let's talk about a really fucking good one from a really fucking underrated manga. Choujin X kind of sits on the border of popularity. It's by Soi Ishida, author of Tokyo Ghoul, so it's not like it's starting from nowhere, but without an anime or the reputation of other unadapted manga like Vagabond or Goodnight Pun Pun, it hasn't gotten any spotlight. That's a shame, mostly because it's just a really good manga, but also because its power system is exceptional. Choujin are unique but still recognizable, their lore and mechanics are super interesting but still easy to follow, and it has enough variability to do whatever it wants, while still building limitations into its very foundations. This power system nails the 3 criteria, but that's not all a system needs to get a video essay out of me. If I just wanted to talk about the 3 criteria, this video would be about stands, or maybe nen. In comparison, what makes Choujin such a good power system isn't just its mastery of the bullet points, it's 3 things, 2 mechanics and an application that redefine existing parts of power systems in the genre to make itself all the better. To start with, let's talk about I'm a firm believer that regeneration makes every fight scene better. Whether it's Naruto or Chainsaw Man, the series that have some sort of ultra fast healing would be worse without it, and the ones that don't would be better off for it. Regeneration is perfect for establishing certain tones, but more so it gives the writer freedom to hurt their characters as much as they like, without needing to deal with the consequences of that level of injury. It's more freedom, and when set up well, freedom is never a bad thing for a fight scene. Key term, when set up well. As we touched on a second ago, although freedom is great for a power system, it's best when tempered by limits, especially ones that apply to every person using it. That way, protagonists are forced to get more creative and take bigger risks, which always makes the scene better, while antagonists are always beatable, even if their powers are extremely broken. A lack of universal limits is part of what led Bleach to write itself into a corner with Yhwach, for example. A super strong villain who can see and manipulate the future is really cool until you realize they're literally impossible to defeat. TJ Kubo had to pull a silver arrow out of the depths of his ass just to let the 1,000-year blood war end. Regeneration is great, it provides a ton of freedom and it's super fun to watch, but it's usually only tempered by vague limits about how much a character can be hurt and still regenerate, if that. It can also remove all the things that a writer can do with injury and slow healing, or it can downplay the impact of self-sacrifice. Zoro's famous "nothing happened" wouldn't hit quite as hard if he was totally fine a page later. Raises are the answer to these issues. They are regeneration, but with hard, universal limits that can allow for more things. Raises are a byproduct of a Choujin's will to live. They allow them to regenerate to full strength when they come too close to death, but that drains a lot of energy. So most Choujin are restricted to just 2 to 3 raises per fight. There's also a mental aspect to them. Properly raising comes down to one's internal perception of themselves. So if they can't internalize themselves at full strength, a raise won't get them there no matter how hard they try. Approaching it like this, instead of constant wellness or constant danger, regeneration becomes sort of like a healing item in a video game. Characters can still get brutally hurt without needing to deal with the consequences, but they also can't just come instantly back from that. There aren't any illusions about immortality. Choujin have to pick and choose the right moment to raise. Too often, and they'll run out before they really need it, but if they don't raise enough, they'll do something we'll talk about in a minute, or more often, just straight up die. Characters have to run away and raise so that they aren't caught right after, or work with an injury because they can't afford to heal right now. They have to do so much more with the same scenarios than either their regenerating or non-regenerating counterparts. It's the best of both worlds. I can't go through every cool bit about raises though, partly because I'm trying to avoid spoilers here, but mainly because they also factor into not to keep making Bleach comparisons, but everyone remembers Ichigo's Vasto Lorde form, right? Even if you haven't seen the show, you probably recognize it. This is one of the most iconic moments in all of shonen anime. At the end of the line, in a moment of extreme injury, rage, and desperation, Ichigo Kurosaki finally gives in to his inner hollow and becomes a mindless, raging, incredibly powerful monster. This isn't a unique moment either. Variations of it show up in a ton of battle manga. Think of Goku's Ozaru, Six-Tailed Naruto, Adult Gon. They're not always anger-based, but I like to call them rage modes. It helps that they originated in Dragon Ball, one of the most popular manga of all time, but rage modes have stuck around because they're a really engaging plot device. For one thing, a fight with any uber-powerful monster is sure to be a great time on either side of a conflict. A hateable antagonist getting their shit kicked in is always fun, but so is the heroes fighting a rage battle against a powerful foe. Furthermore, because the person in the rage mode is usually the protagonist, there are a bunch of layers to this fight that you wouldn't see in a typical beatdown or raid. There's a level of melancholy to the ass kicking because you know the hero wouldn't want to be this brutal. The people fighting care about this person, so they're trying to stop them without hurting them, or they trip up because they can't bear to fight their friend. Then there's problems for the one in the rage mode of themselves. They succumb to the darkness, or they tripped up and now everyone has to pay for it. They're fighting their friends, the people they went this far for in the first place. Rage modes are just a really interesting play on a bunch of existing tropes. There's a ton of cool stuff that a writer can do with them. Cutting to the chase, a chaos state is a rage mode, but it's for everyone. All of those examples I mentioned before are more or less exclusive to that character. Vasto Lorde happens because Ichigo has a hollow possessing him. Ozaru happens because Goku is a Saiyan with a tail. Six Tails is a side effect of Naruto being the nine-tailed Jinchuriki. Gon is so young and has so much potential that almost any other character wouldn't be able to get nearly as much power out of the same restriction. The only other person who could do his adult form is maybe Killua. Conversely, any Choujin can enter a chaos state if they use too much power or lose control of their emotions. It provides all the hype and badassery of other rage modes, but it can happen to any character, and thus, say it with me kids, it gives the writer more freedom. Characters can beat the antagonist with a chaos state, but then fail to get out and come with their friends. Perhaps most often, a Choujin in a bad situation will lose control and enter a chaos state that the protagonists have to get them out of, or kill them in. That's where raises come in. Because they drain so much power, getting someone to raise is one of the best ways to pull them out of a chaos state. Here's a problem though. Part of the reason that rage modes are usually one-offs is that it's really hard to make them reusable, but at the same time keep them an absolute Plan Z last resort. Giving characters the ability to use it again helps with creative freedom, but rage modes are way too strong to be used in everyday fights. They can't be the new standard of power, because then you'll leave most of the cast behind and the form will lose its pizzazz, but if they're not the new standard, then the protagonist can just transform and steamroll all of their opponents. Unlike most rage modes, chaos states are both reusable and last resorts, so how does Soi Ishida resolve this tension? He does the obvious thing, we've been talking about them for ages. He adds limitations. When Choujin enters a chaos state, they lose their mind and start attacking the thing that pissed them off, just like any other rage mode. Only problem is, sometimes they don't get their mind back. If they go too hard, hyperfixate too strongly, there's a real chance that they will stay a monster no matter what. That's common too. Standard procedure for a chaosified opponent is often execution. It's just that dangerous to try and pull them back. This property is just enough of a consequence that, combined with the chance to hurt their friends, Nozuka willingly enter a chaos state. It's always an option, one to be used on either side, but now it's no one's first choice. The only people who use it willingly are the ones who keep their mind when they use it, and they're always antagonists. It's not as important for a villain to go crazy in forms like these, so long as they're still beatable, so it can act like a final form for those insane enough to try it. Again, it's just more freedom for the writer. Rage mode might be a homemade term, but it's a pretty common trope, especially in battle manga. As we've gone over, you can find some variety of this in almost any example, whether it's a classic or an up-and-comer. However, even with all that history, I don't think I've seen a series execute a rage mode better than Choujin X does with chaos states, at least as a part of the power system. They take advantage of the pros and work around the cons to create an original, readable version that balances a ton of freedom with usable limitations. Earlier, I said we would go over two mechanics and an application of Choujin as a power system. Raises and chaos states were the mechanics, but now we go over the application. How Choujin X's power system affects its Lots of anime and manga use the real world but with a fantastical element school of world building. Instead of setting the story in a totally original world, they put in one that seems like ours on the surface but with one or two magical differences. Think of Dandadan, Sailor Moon, even K-pop Demon Hunters. This approach is common for a reason. It helps to establish certain tones, it's good for character-audience connection, and most importantly, it does a lot of the work for you. Think about it, writers don't have to think through and explain quite as much when their epic world building is just layered on top of normal-ass New York City. Sure, it's a little lazy, but lazy world building can be helpful for a lot of stories, especially short ones like movies that don't have the time to fully engage with every little thing. Unfortunately, manga aren't especially short. Let's spend a minute with an example. Jujutsu Kaisen takes place in modern Japan, except there's a secret society of magical people who fight off invisible monsters known as cursed spirits. Those people are known as Jujutsu sorcerers, and they fight the cursed spirits because they were born with the ability to see and manipulate cursed energy, which is what the spirits are made out of. They have their own secret society across Japan, which has been around in one way or another for at least a millennia. However, because being a sorcerer tends to make people pretty volatile, it's full of infighting and abuse. One problem with all that. Why exactly are they hidden? And how have they kept it up for so damn long? Jujutsu Kaisen is, in part, a story about what overwhelming strength does to people, and that usually means them fighting everyone and causing a bunch of property damage. Sorcerers destroy shit almost constantly, from bathrooms to city blocks. Sure, they have veils to cover the fights themselves, but how do you hide the craters all over the walls? While we're on the topic, let's talk about Bleach yet again. It has better excuses for the secrecy of all its magic than Jujutsu Kaisen. A lot of it's invisible and the rest is stuck in other dimensions, but the scale of a given fight still makes me wonder how no one slipped up yet. You're telling me a guy like Kenpachi is hundreds of years old, can casually slice up skyscraper-sized motherfuckers, and the human world has never figured out how the buildings keep getting sliced in half? These examples are a little oddly specific, but what I'm getting at is a big weakness in this school of world building: secrecy. The fantastical element has to stay hidden, both so that the protagonist can discover it, and because if it's not hidden, then it has to affect everything else. If people knew about Jujutsu sorcerers or Shinigami, then you need to deal with public opinion, government regulation, foreign interests, and 1,000 other details that affect how the story's world works. Losing the fantastical element's secrecy forces writers to do the actual world building that this approach is partially meant to skip. Now, there are stories that have this approach but still engage with their fantastical element as an important part of the world. Chainsaw Man does it, especially in part 2, and so does Choujin X's predecessor, Tokyo Ghoul. Ishida's previous work has a normal world with a fantastical element, that being ghouls. They're a species that look identical to humans, except they possess superhuman abilities and an insatiable craving for human flesh. In fact, ghouls have to feed on people to survive, and besides us, the only things they can safely consume are coffee and other ghouls. That's where we get our power system. Ghouls can grow tentacles called kagenui out of their backs to hunt, and through them, every power system in the manga ends up being built around these people. Getting back on topic, with monsters this vampiric, one might expect the story to take a Demon Slayer approach, where the ghouls are all evil and basically cryptids, but what we actually see is the opposite. Tokyo Ghoul is built around how ghouls have affected modern society, just look at the CCG. Short for Commission of Counter Ghoul, it's a major government organization dedicated to eradicating the monsters, one chock full of technology and infrastructure meant to kill or contain them. On the other side, despite all the murder, ghouls are not characterized as evil monsters. They are people with their own internal culture and politics that have left their own bearing on the human world. While it mostly matches the real city, Tokyo Ghoul takes the time to actually build its creature's premise into the world instead of laying it on top. The power system isn't just a random thing, it's an actual part of the world building. Choujin X was written by the same guy, so it and Tokyo Ghoul must have similar world building, right? Well, sort of. Choujin X also has a normal world with a fantastical element approach, and it also integrates its elements into the world building. Only difference is, this time Ishida went way harder. Choujin have been around for less than a century, and Japan doesn't exist anymore. I'm gonna try and avoid spoilers, but in this world, the mere existence of people with superpowers led to a massive war that destroyed the country and left locally governed prefectures in its wake. Those, in turn, are filled with war scars, poverty, and Choujin organizations, both good and bad. Chaos states are a known hazard, using powers is restricted without proper licensing, and opioids are banned because the combination of raises and strong painkillers can make a powerful Choujin nearly unstoppable. Normal worlds with fantastical elements are common for a reason. This approach to world building is great for a lot of stories, but they tend to be a little shallow. Even if a power system is rare, it won't stay hidden forever, and its existence is gonna affect the world around it in tangible ways. So many stories just let their lore sit on top of our world a bit. Coming back to Jujutsu Kaisen, that manga tells us Jujutsu sorcery has been around forever, but it never remembers that normal humans have been around even longer. It never tells us how either side got to be separated, let alone integrates them. Choujin X does the opposite. Its lore is built into the very foundation of its world. I don't need to ask those questions of it because they're answered in the very first page. Let's be real for a second. This video isn't just about how good of a power system Choujin is, it's also propaganda for the manga itself. If you couldn't tell by now, Choujin X is a personal favorite, and while famous older sibling always helps, not nearly enough people know about this manga. The story is too good to just be another unanimated seinen. I know a power system video makes it seem like a mindless fight compilation, but it's not, I promise. There's a lot of plot and character work, it has themes that are executed well, and the fights do storytelling, they're not just there for the sake of it. Choujin X is a tight 90 chapters of manga with great art, action, characters, and things to say. What more can you ask for? Now then, with all my cards on the table, Choujin is a damn good power system. This video might be propaganda, but I wouldn't make it if I didn't believe what I was saying. We've gone over what makes raises, chaos states, and the world building so good, but let's not forget about those three criteria from the beginning. If we're talking originality, Choujin is tropey. This approach to superpowers isn't exactly rare, but especially with beastification and chaos states, it's more than unique enough to stand out. For readability, it has its complexities, but they're all pretty well communicated and easy to understand. Everyone knows show don't tell, but Ishida likes to do both. Raises and chaos states are shown to the reader initially, but then explained in text after the fight is over. As for freedom and limitations, do I really need to explain that bit? We've been talking about it for ages. Most of the major adjustments to common power system tropes are done for the sake of one or both. That's the whole reason raises work the way they do. Even pretending to be unbiased, Choujin X is a fantastic manga, and for all of its great storytelling, it wouldn't be nearly as good without a power system as thought out and well executed as this one. Choujin is up there with the best of the best. Thank you so much for watching. This is both my first YouTube video and my first time editing anything, so it's probably kinda shit, but either way, thanks for staying through till the end. I don't know when or if another one's coming, but I guess subscribe to find out. Follow me on social media. I don't know, plugging myself feels a little scummy. Do whatever you want, I'm not a cop. Have a good night.